The Square Ball Podcast.
Jonny, tell us about some of the Opta data for player trends for 23-24 and what it perhaps points to for Leeds' upcoming season in the Championship. Who stood out for you?
Well, Rutter, I would say, would be the player who I most enjoyed watching, apart from Somerville, but he's gone now, so we won't talk about him. Rutter, second for chances created in open play, second for assists, top for open play assists, top for dribbles, top for fouls won in the final third, top for duels won among any player in the Championship last year. So he was basically doing it all.
Can't shoot for shit.
I was just about to say, apart from that, the shooting, he had a 5.5% shot conversion rate, which was 7 goals from 128 shots, which is the lowest on record in the Championship for a player to have had that many in a season.
At least he was trying.
Yeah, he was having a go.
Don't pick on him. Don't bless him.
But everything else, and 16 assists, most since Robert Snodgrass in 2008, 2009.
You mentioned Somerville, though, and he was obviously instrumental in goals and assists as well as Jorginho, and the two of them, when they were paired up, I remember you saying before, provided a hell of a lot of our output last season. So how do we adjust, do you think, to the loss of Somerville, and do we need to lean on Georgi more? Do we need more return from Georgi?
Goals-wise, yes. I'm glad you brought that up, actually, because Somerville and Rutter were the most chances created between a duo. I think they created around about the same amount for each other, and it was the most on record, and it was miles ahead. Those two linking up was brilliant. One thing I will say, obviously, I didn't see the full Valencia game, but I think Joseph and Rutter, both goals, they were linking up. Mm-hmm. One of them assisted the other, I think. So fingers crossed we might have found another partnership there for Rutter, because Rutter is going to create a lot of chances again, just because of the way he plays. So hopefully we're relying a lot on Mateo Joseph doing it this year, but that could be the link up.
It's funny looking back, just thinking of the Cardiff game. We didn't actually have a striker that game, did we? Looking at the starting lineup,
who was up front there?
It was Gnonto. It was the front players were Dan James, Sinistera, Somerville, and Gnonto.
Jeez,
false nine.
I'd have completely forgotten that we just didn't have an actual standard number 9 in that team.
And you've got Gnonto in there, who's obviously agitating to leave at that point, and that hadn't yet blown up and blown over.
Yeah, coming off the bench. Sonny Perkins comes on in that game.
Wow. We really weren't ready, were we?
No.
There's a really weird screen grab I saw of, at the end of that game, Somerville on the pitch. Farker's sort of on the left-hand side. Tyler Adams comes on the pitch and puts his arm around Somerville.
Yes, I remember that.
Those three things just don't mix together. It's a very strange photo, because he left, obviously, not long after Tyler Adams, but it's a weird photo.
Because I remember that happening and thinking, oh, well, maybe he is going to be part of this and drive us forward and stuff. It turns out he's broken, but never mind.
Played about 3 games since then, hasn't it?
Yeah. Thank you very much for the cash. But Willie Gnonto, assuming he does stay with us this season, I mean, he may yet leave. There's still time to go in the window, another couple of weeks, 3 weeks. He needs to step up. I think, what was his return like last season compared to his mate?
He got 8 goals and 3 assists, one every 169 minutes per goal or assist. Somerville was one every 129. Dan James actually had the best return, which was one every 127 minutes, 13 goals last year. I think Gnonto scored most of his goals away from Ellen Road as well. He had a really long stretch where he scored about 7 or 8 goals consecutively away from home.
Was it the Rotherham game where he kicked that off? I think, was he when he just cut inside, or was it Bristol? It was Bristol. Somebody who plays in red, and it was like under floodlights. Yeah. It was a Friday night game, wasn't it?
Then Plymouth away, and then I don't remember the other ones now off the top of my head. But yeah, there's a lot of away goals.
Swansea, I think.
Swansea.
Yeah, will he benefit from being on the left, maybe, if that's where he starts? Because I feel like he's stronger cutting in onto his right foot than when he was trying to go around the outside on the right.
He still fell short, though, by a long way in the end.
He's only little. Well, you meant, right, yeah.
From his target.
Yeah, because you set him 27 goals, didn't you, to redeem his poor behaviour?
That was admittedly right at the start of the season when he'd first come back. I demanded 27 goals. He can get him this year instead, and then I will review it again at the end of the season.
Right. He's basically on performance review.
Yes.
With you. Yeah. What else did you spot then, players-wise, Jonny?
Junior Firpo. Give a bit of Junior Firpo love, because
that's immediately set the song going off in my head.
Yeah,
now.
Exactly. Yeah, Ross McCormack singing that in Hillsborough was enjoyed that. So from January the 1st onwards, he was the joint most assists in open play, alongside who in the Championship? 8 assists.
Not Rutter.
No.
Somerville's the obvious one, but it's going to be somebody from...
It is somebody
it's Ipswich, Leaf, Davis.
It's not.
No.
It is somebody who played for Leeds last season, but he wasn't playing for Leeds at the time.
Luke Ayling.
Luke Ayling. 8 assists.
Yes.
Just think if he was on the right-hand side, we'd have had 16 assists from the right and left backs. But yeah, so he did really well towards the end of last season. Rutter did have 6 as well. He wasn't far behind. But hopefully, obviously, we've got Jayden Bogle playing on the right next season. I was looking, I think it was 2018-19, he was playing for Derby, and he was the top chances created by a full-back that year and most assists. So Archie Gray last year, I think 17 chances created when he was playing right-back, whereas Bogle had 53 that year, 2018-19.
Wow.
When he was part of the Derby team who beat us at Ellen Road, wasn't he? So,
And it's nice to know he was an active part of it, and that's what we've recruited. That's how I feel about that.
Yeah, I do feel like he actually will, assuming he stays fit, because he did get a bit injured against Valencia, but assuming he's fit, I actually think he will be an upgrade at right back on Archie Gray.
definitely.
At right back.
Yeah. Midfield, maybe not. Maybe Archie's probably a better midfielder than Jayden Bogle.
Yeah, speaking of midfield, I mentioned on a recent show, Jonny, that Glenn Kamara had gone, which obviously everybody knows about, but I said I would ask you and pick your brains about why you thought we've sold him. What is it about Glenn Kamara, do you think, that meant we were prepared to get rid of him and look to get somebody else in?
Well, obviously there was the lack of goals or any sort of goal attempts. I mean, I was looking last year, just a sort of assorted mixture of players who had as many shots on target in the Championship. So you got James Ward-Prowse, who played 1 game, 2 shots on target. Luis Sinisterra had 4 in 175 minutes. Kenny McLean was another one I picked out because he was linked with Leeds last season. He had 2, and he played about 1,000 more minutes than Kamara, so he might have been quite a similar option there. But I was looking, Joe Rothwell played 443 minutes and had 6 shots on target and scored 4 of them, so he might be a slightly better option. Looking just at Leeds' starting midfield in the Championship, I've excluded the playoffs because Gruev did put that lovely goal in against Norwich. We didn't have a single goal from central midfield all year, and we were the only Championship team not to do that. Again, looking at shots from midfield, 39, which was the fewest by central midfielders, and we had 8 shots on target from central midfield, which was 7 fewer than any other team in the Championship. So,
do you think maybe the decision to get rid of Kamara and bring in Rothwell, who we've seen, like, if you've seen video clips of him, and you mentioned some of the stats there, he didn't feature that much, but what he did was a lot of shooting from deep. There's maybe a little tweak to the approach this year. They want a little bit more directness, trying to get through the lines quicker, because that was one of the criticisms of the football that Farke delivered last year was at times it was pedestrian, and we looked like we didn't quite know how to get through teams that were sitting deep.
Yeah, I would say. I mean, Kamara, again, passing accuracy and passes and all that sort, brilliant. Like one of the best players in the league, along with Gruev, but 2 shots on target all season.
Was he a bit crabby though? Was it a lot of it backwards and sideways?
I looked at that actually because I thought, I bet he's the top for backwards or sideways, and there were quite a few other players who actually fewer than him in the Championship. Even though watching him, you would say, crikey, he's always passing the ball back. I mean, the one I remember was Huddersfield away, first 5 minutes was it, where he was like 1-on-1 with the goalie, and he's thinking, just shoot, please.
Look to Melier.
and then he turns and gives it to Somerville, who was almost like, why are you passing him to me here? And that was kind of symptomatic of watching him, I think, trying to go forward.
It's a bit, I suppose the McLean comparison is interesting, actually, because it's kind of all right to have one of those players, but paired alongside Gruev, like Norwich had him alongside Sarah, didn't they, in midfield? Yeah. So you have a holding and you have an attacking player. Like Calvin didn't get, I know he did get some goals, but it's not like he was, getting 2 or 3 shots on target a game, but it was paired with other players who were, whereas it felt like last year there was a very, very clear line between defence, midfield and attack. It was like, these are the ones who are going to score, everyone else, don't bother. Because we didn't even get goals from fullback either, did we, particularly?
No. Firpo didn't score.
No, Roberts got the one, didn't he, against Leicester. And
Archie scored against Leicester, but that wasn't loud, was it?
Take it off him now.
Yeah.
Little rat. Not really, Archie.
Withdraw that comment. Yeah.
I was joking, to be clear.
Interesting question there, I suppose, around Ampadu returning to midfield, because he spent a lot of the season in defence. His presence in defence with Rodon coincided with our best defensive performance. Have I misremembered that?
No, spot on. That was the joint most clean sheets by a centre-back pairing in the Championship last year, and they only played, I think, 22 times alongside each other and got 12 clean sheets. And I think their first game was 13th of January, Cardiff, where they played alongside each other. So it's quite impressive numbers.
That to me, it felt like that was the time when we kind of properly clicked into gear. Is that reflected? Yeah, we went on that run, didn't we, post-Christmas, where it just all seemed to work. So it will be interesting seeing him put back into midfield and split up from Rodon. But then we've got the big sexy pirate back, haven't we? So
yeah, and I'm hoping a more established backline in general will just help us. Because, as you say, going back to the Cardiff game, you're looking at Gelder, Cooper and Ayling are in the defence, and it was essentially all torn up within... Well, Cooper got injured in that game, didn't he? So he barely really played. He never got another proper run, did he, across the season? Ayling was shipped out not long after. Gelder was gone within another 2 games because he kept playing him and then going, oh shit, no, and taking him straight off again.
Cody Drame got his little turn as well. And
exactly. So if we could actually start the season with a defence we are likely to end it with, that would be a massive benefit, I think. Yeah.
Ampadu as well started 54 of our 55 games last year.
He probably needs a rest.
Yeah.
At some stage. For as much as we said, was the youth a problem in the playoff final, it could just be that people didn't really get a rest. Like if Somerville was fit, he played. If Ampadu was fit, he played. If Bamford was fit, he played, but wasn't often.
I suppose, are you getting at basically the idea that maybe the squad overall didn't have the depth and the strength to it once you got outside your first choice players?
I feel like that, yeah, and it felt like we got into it's weird to talk about getting into a rut of winning, but we did. We got into that run of games where it was like the team was set and it kept winning, so you don't want to change it. But then you reach a point where it breaks down. Because
we tested it against Stoke, hadn't we, before? And I think there was a lot of it did a lot of damage, I think, emotionally, that game, because he rotated the team, didn't he, when he put Anthony in, didn't he? And I think did Gnonto come in at that point as well?
Put Gruev in for one game, I think. That was sort of like, that was when we're never going to see him again then.
That was when exactly. That was when he came in and we were like, oh, right, this is not great. Yeah, and it felt like it all fell apart at that point after some momentum had built.
And then towards the end of the season, when things started going wrong, it felt like the things that you would potentially try had already either been half tested or just were not trusted. So it ended up like it felt like we just kept trying to get the old formula to work again, when maybe it needed, like, people were crying out for Mateo Joseph to get some game time at that point. And I feel like if this season we start with him actually in the team, he might come in and out through the season, but if he's a bit more of a trusted part of the squad, then you go, all right, it's not really working with Pirot, with Bamford, with Rutter, and you can switch him in and maybe it'll give us some better options.
Do you think we missed Dan James towards the end of last season?
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, looking at his numbers last year, I mean, he got 13 league goals and he'd only scored 16 in his career before last season. He had a really good run. Speaking about Gnonto being really good away, Dan James at home had a brilliant run. I think he started 18 games at Ellen Road and it was only 4 of those he didn't get a goal or an assist in. So he was always there. Yeah, he had quite a good run of games where he scored consecutively at Ellen Road. So it's funny though, I did look at his numbers away from home and they're just not great. Even when he was at Swansea in the Championship, he didn't really do much away from home. Whereas at home, his numbers are brilliant. It's strange. Some players are just like that.
That's a funny little quirk, isn't it? And I've begun to imagine or try to explain why that might be.
Because you would think it'd be better away from home where the teams are trying to attack and we can just knock it over the top and he can chase it.
But a lot of teams didn't, even when we went away, did they? They sat deep against us. So has that got a bearing? And I don't know, I suppose, does the crowd have a bearing on it?
Who's to say, Dan?
I don't know. I'm not a psychologist.
That's the stats. The stats are
we need to
mysterious.
get a sports psychologist in to explain all this sort of stuff. So start Dan James at Ellen Road is one of the big takeaways for this coming season.
And there'll be Gnonto away, Dan James at home.
Rotate the two. Yep. And have you got anything on players we've been linked with? And at this point, we are recording this Wednesday, early afternoon, and Leeds heavily linked to Jonathan Rowe, who will probably end up somewhere else now after we've jinxed it and said this. Have you got any idea about what he would bring if Leeds were to bring him in?
I mean, we looked at his numbers last year. I think he had 12 goals in 25 starts. So that's a really good return. Other than that, I don't know a great deal about him. I would have to do some more digging. But 12 goals would be a great addition to the team. Obviously, Somerville, was it 20 or 21 last year? So that's a big hole of goals that we've lost there.
Yeah. Were we too reliant on him to a certain extent? Because you mentioned before the idea that, if we're not quite sure what to do, give it to Somerville and they'll do something.
Yeah, basically, I think, to be honest, I would have probably kept him on in the playoff final. Because
I was surprised we took him off as well. Just because
Jaden Anthony came on? Didn't really do much all season. Not that it was his fault. I think he came on 32 times as a sub. So
it kind of actually runs a bit counter to what Farke did all season, which was to be very measured and considered, almost conservative with a small c with his substitutions and keep his potential match winners on anyway until matches were won and then he could take them off. It felt like Was it a desperate roll of the dice at that point?
Yeah. I mean, if the ball had dropped on the edge of the box, say it was Dan James' chance and it was Somerville, that's the person I would want on the end of it. And then obviously it was Dan James and I ripped my 30th birthday badge off and chucked it at the steward. And yeah.
And spent the night in the cells. That's what you did, really.
Cells, yeah.
So spreading those goals around and those goal contributions is going to be absolutely paramount, you think?
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
It's an obvious thing to say.
Yeah.
But.
More goals from midfield is probably important. I think when I came on, last year I was mentioning we're not scoring from midfield, but it's okay because the other players are doing it. But if, say, for instance, Somerville's gone and he's, that's 20-odd goals and 10 assists, say somebody comes in and doesn't do it, we are going to have to look at those are the other areas to score goals. So.
Yeah. Goals from central areas were just lacking in general, weren't we? Centre back, once Strauch was out, centre backs didn't score, central midfielders didn't score. Pirro got a decent number, but then Rutter massively underperformed. Bamford was in and out. He just felt like there was not an awful lot other than from the wide players.
Yeah,
for large parts of last year, and as we've already established, Joseph's going to get 40 this year.
Yep.
Bamford probably 25 from the bench. So that'll sort it all out.
Well, looking at Joe Rothwell, the last time he had a proper full championship season, he got 10 assists, and I think he was third for chances created from set pieces. So that, like we were saying...
Does he not know the Leeds United policy about set pieces?
I know, exactly, yeah. And what was it, Matt Heath?
We'll break him.
Yeah.
But, I can't wait for his first corner to be headed out of the near post and for everyone to go, there we go.
Yeah, headed out to Rothwell.
Comparing it to the video compilations of him hitting absolutely pinpoint crosses every time.
But if he does, actually put some decent balls in the box, I mean, I think of Pablo Hernandez for about 3 months under Gary Monk, where he was just swinging it in and Bartley with Janssen were getting on the end of it. It would be nice to see Rodon really attack a ball and just, twat it in, basically, head it in top corner.
His attacking instincts seem terrible, I have to say, with Rodon. Because Strauch seems to know where to be on corners to actually score goals. Cooper seemed to often be in the right place. He had a bit of a 50p head at times, but he would often get on the end of crosses. It feels like Rodon's just nowhere near him, whereas defensively, he just always seems to be in the right place. He's just got amazing instincts for it defensively.
Limited brain capacity, though. It's all full of defending.
Possibly so, but I don't mind that. I'm happier for him to be defending well than attacking well. But yeah, it seems weird that someone who is evidently very good in the air just never seems to get anywhere near a corner.
I think he's like it was in the top 5 for aerial duels won last year, so mainly defensively, I can't imagine he won that many in the opposition box.
How many games did Strauch play last year? He was quite limited in terms of his...
Yeah, well, his last game was just before New Year, wasn't it? So probably in the 20s, 25 maybe, something like that.
Half a season. He's had a nice big rest.
That was a standard Leeds United weeks, not months injuries, wasn't it?
Yeah, it just spiralled on.
See you next year.
Yeah. But it'll be interesting to see if we do see a shift in emphasis there. They attempt to exploit set pieces that bit more, because it's something that Ipswich did a lot of via Leif Davis, wasn't it? Corners and just crosses and all that sort of stuff. We never felt like a very crossy team. We always felt like give it to the wingers who can run with it team. Yeah,
well, I think that's due to a lack of focal point up front as well, because neither Pirro nor Rutter were really kind of attack the front post, hang around the penalty spot strikers, whether they were people who seem to like to do their work outside the box more than anything. Whereas I'm hopeful that having someone like Joseph, who seems like, I know he feels like a traditional hungry striker who just wants to go and head it in from 6 yards
and bash people around.
Yeah, which I think we were lacking last year.
What do you reckon for Joseph's season coming up? It'll be interesting to track him from a position of not having much data on him to probably the best part of a full season, injuries barring.
Absolutely, yeah. I was actually surprised that he's not started a league game at all yet for Leeds, which I thought he had at least maybe 1 or 2 last year, and that is a club record naturally. That I looked up most league appearances without starting a game. If you can name the only other player with 10 league appearances without a start, then fair play, I'll buy you both a beer.
Give us an era.
Early 2000s, Australian.
Oh, Jamie McMaster.
What a shout. Yeah.
Well done.
Oh, that's a shout, that is.
Thank you very much.
Yep, 11 league games, no starts. So I think Joseph will end that run on Saturday.
Should we get into why Jamie McMaster left the club?
Nah.
Oh, was it?
Don't matter.
I've got the name John Oster in my head, is that right?
Yeah, the two of them are up to something.
Yeah, saying nothing.
Well, Jonny, thanks for coming in. Massively appreciate it.
No problem.
And we'll catch up maybe in the international break like we did last season. We'll see how the season is trending from a numbers point of view, and we'll see how many of Mateo Joseph's, I think it'll be 10 goals at that point.
Yeah.
Were from inside and outside the box, headers and that sort of thing. So we'll look forward to that.
Happy days. See you then.
We'll speak soon.
The Square Ball Podcast.